afternoon, everyone. I am Joshua P. Mercader, and today I will discuss about the 5E learning cycle and the activity-based approach. But before that, let us read the background of our study. The 5E learning cycle to engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate and activity-based learning or ABL are two instructional approaches that promote active engagement and deeper understanding among the students. Also, the 5E model is rooted in constructive-based learning theory, encourages inquiry-based learning, um, exploration, helping students build knowledge through hands-on experiences. Similarly, ABL or activity-based learning focuses on interactive experiential learning, shifting away from passive instructions to foster critical thinking and collaboration and problem-solving skills. This study aims to examine the effectiveness of the 5E learning cycle and ABL in enhancing learning outcomes, providing educators with insights, and on designing more interactive and meaningful lesson. Now let us read our classroom objectives. At the end of the lesson, the learners will be able to explain the concept and the significance of activity-based learning or ABL and the 5E learning instructional model. B. Describe the pieces of the 5E's framework and the implementations process of ABL or active-based learning. And letter C. Analyze the advantages and disadvantages of ABL and the 5E models in education. Now, let us know the 5E learning cycle. So what is 5E learning cycle? When we say 5E instructional model is a widely recognized framework based on constructivist learning principles, emphasizing the idea that learners build new knowledge upon their prior understanding. So, the 5E's model is a teaching method that helps students learn by doing. It follows 5 steps: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. This model makes more learning more interactive, encourages students to think deeply, and works different types of learner. Now, let us proceed to the 5 pieces, which are the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. Now let us discuss the 5 pieces. The first one is the engage. What is engage? The engage phase initiates the learning process by connecting student prior knowledge with new concepts. So example of this is in math, if we teach fraction. So show students pictures of pizza and ask, if we cut this into equal slices, how can we share it fairly? So here we introduces the fraction, and by that the teacher grab student attentions and connects to what they already know. Now let us proceed to the next pieces. The explore. So what is explore? Explore in this space, learners actively investigate and interact with materials or scenarios, fostering independent discovery. So in connecting with the first example, fraction, we give student paper circles and asks them to fold and cut them into halves, thirds, and fourths. So they observe and compare the sizes of different fractions. So here in the example, the students do hands-on activities to discover new ideas on their own. Now let's proceed to the third, the explain. Here in explain, this space focuses on clarifying and formalizing the concept of students explored. For example, is that the teacher explains that fractions are part of a whole and introduces terms like numerator and denominator. So students discuss what they notice during their activity. So here is that the teacher introduces the formal math vocabulary and the concept. Now let us proceed to the second to the last spaces. The elaborate. So what is elaborate? The elaborate phase extend learning by allowing students to apply their knowledge in the new context. So example of this is that students solve real world problem like if a pizza has its slices and you eat three, what fraction is left? So they also create fraction word problems for classmates to solve. So here the students apply their learning in new ways. In the last spaces, the evaluate. So this final phase assess both student understanding and instructional effectiveness. So here, assess students' learning through formative or summative assessment, discussions, reflections, or quizzes to check their understanding. Those are the 5 phases of the 5E learning cycle. Now, let us discuss the advantages of the 5E learning cycle. So, I have here 3 advantages of the 5E's model. Number 1 is promote active learning. Number 2 encourages critical thinking. And number 3, flexible and exclusive. Now let's discuss the first advantages. The promotes active learning. So here is that the 5 is learning cycle students engage in hands-on experiences, experiment, and problem-solving activities rather than passive receiving information. So the 5E model engages students in hands-on activities, discussions, and problem solving instead of passive learning. So, this approach helps students to develop a deeper understanding by experiencing concept firsthand. The second advantage is encourages critical thinking. So, students analyze, predict, and solve problem instead of just memorizing the facts, helping them develop reasoning skills. Here's that students are guided to ask questions, explore ideas, and draw conclusions independently. This process strengthens their problem solving skills and helps them to become more confident learners. And the last one is the flexible inclusive. The model accommodates diverse learning styles, abilities, and backgrounds, making lessons adaptable to all the students. The models allows teachers to adapt lessons to meet the needs of all students, ensuring an inclusive and learning environment to all the students. So those are the advantages of the 5E learning cycle. Now let's proceed to the limitation and challenges of the 5E learning models. So there are 3: the time intensive, resource dependent, and varied effectiveness across the subject. So the first one is time intensive. The 5E model needs more time because teacher must carefully plan each step and students need time to explore and understand the lesson. So the 5E model involves activities and discussion which take longer than just listening to a lecture. So this can make it hard to cover all the topics in a short time. The second one is the resource dependence. This method often requires special tools, technology, or materials which not all schools have. So, hands on learning often requires supplies, experiments, or technology that may not always be available. Schools with fewer resources might, might find it difficult to use this method. So the third one is the varied effectiveness across the subject. The 5E model is great for subjects that involves experiments and hands-on activities like science and math, but may not work as well for subjects that need a lot of reading and memorization like history or literature. The 5E models is great for science and math, but harder to use in subjects like history or literature because some of the topic don't easily fit into hands-on exploration. So those are the three limitations and challenges of the 5E learning cycle. Now let's discuss about the activity-based learning. What is activity-based learning? It is an instructional approach where students engage activities directly related to the subject matter. So, activity-based learning is a teaching method where students learn by doing hands-on tasks related to the topic instead of just listening to a lecture. This approach helps them to understand the concepts better through real-world experiences and problem solving. Now, how do you conduct activity-based learning? So there are five things that we need to do. Planning, engagement, execution, feedback, and assessment. So let's proceed to planning. What is planning? When we say planning, it is to identify clear learning objectives and plan activities around them. So teachers decide what students need to learn and create fun, hands-on activities to help them understand. This makes learning clear and engaging. Number two, the engagement. So start with introductory activity to gauge student prior knowledge and capture their interest. So, as a teacher, start with a simple activity to grab the attentions and see what they already know. This helps them to connect new ideas to what they learned before. The third one is the execution. So, execution incorporate a variety of types of activity-based learning from project to games. Use different activities like games, projects, or experiment to make learning more exciting for everyone. This helps students to learn in ways that suit them best. The fourth one is feedback. So after each activity, facilitate a feedback session. After each activity, discuss what went well and what can be improved. This helps students think about what they learned and how to do better next time. The last one is the assessment. So, assessment evaluate not just the end of the result, but also the process, collaborations, and individual contribution. So you as a teacher, you should check both the final result and how students work through the activity. Digital tools can help track progress and also give fair feedback. So those are um, the things that we need to conduct an activity-based learning. Now let's discuss the skills the teacher needs for activity-based learning. I have here four skills: the creativity, flexibility, observational, and collaborative spirit. Now let's tackle the first one, the creativity. So, as a teacher, we should design a unique, engaging, and relevant activities. Teachers should come up with fun and interesting ways to teach. This makes lessons more enjoyable and easier to understand. Number two, the flexibility. So teachers need to be ready to adapt if an activity isn't working as intended. As if an activity isn't working, teachers should be able to change it quickly. This keeps student engaged and learning. The number three is observational. So, as a teacher, to monitor student participation, identify areas of struggles, and provide timely intervention. So, teacher need to watch how students participate and help those who are struggling. This ensures everyone is learning well. The last one is collaborative spirit. To work with fellow educators or industry experts, bringing richer experiences to students. So, working with other teachers or experts can bring more exciting experiences to students, sharing ideas, and makes lesson even more better. So, those are the skills that need of a teacher for activity-based learning. Are the challenges of activity-based learning? So I have here four challenges: resource intensive, time consuming, classroom management, and assessment difficulties. Now let's tackle the resource intensive. So when we say resource intensive, it might require specialized tools or materials which can be expensive or hard to source. So some activities require special supplies or tools that may not be available. Schools with fewer resources may find it harder to do these activities. The second one is time consuming. Planning and executing EBL can be more time intensive rather than traditional lecture. So planning and doing hands-on activities take longer than regular lessons. Teacher may struggle to cover everything in a short of time. The third one is classroom management. So, with students actively engaged in various tasks, it might get chaotic unless managed well. When students are active involved, the classroom can get noisy and hard to control. So, teacher need to keep things organized and focused. The fourth one is assessment difficulties. So, assessing group activities and hands-on tasks can be more challenging rather than grading a standardized test. Unlike regular tests, it is not always easy to measure how much students have learned from these activities. So, teachers need different ways to check the progress. So, those are the challenges of activity-based learning. Now, let's proceed to the types of activity-based learning. So there are four types: the project-based learning, problem-based learning, game-based learning, and experiential-based learning. Now let's discuss the project-based learning. So when we say project-based learning, the students work on extended projects that require research, creativity, and problem solving. These often result in tangible outcomes such as presentations, models, or reports, fostering deep learning and collaboration. So, in this method, students work on project over a period of time. They do research, think creatively, and solve problems to complete their project. So, example of this is that a class is learning about the environment. So, students work in a group to create a model of an eco-friendly city and present how it helps to save nature. Now let's proceed to the problem-based learning. So when we say problem-based learning, students tackled real-world challenges with minimal direct instruction. It encouraging them to develop critical thinking, teamwork, and self-directed learning skills while applying knowledge across the subject. So students solve real-life problems with little direct help from the teacher. They learn by asking questions, working in teams, and think critically. And now let's proceed to the game-based learning. So educational concepts are integrated into interactive games, making learning enjoyable and motivating. Whether digital or physical, games promote engagement, friendly competitions, and reinforcement of key concept. So learning happens through games, making it fun and engaging. Games can be digital or computer based, and also it can be physical, like example of board games or puzzle. So those are game based learning. The last one is experiential learning. So learning through direct experience, such as experiment, field trips, and role playing or simulation. So here's that student learn by experiencing things directly instead of just reading about them. And this can include experiments, field trips, or role playing. So those are the types of activity-based learning. In conclusion, the 5 e-learning cycle and activity-based learning promote active student engagement and deeper understanding. Through hands-on experiences, the 5E model guides learners through inquiry and exploration, while activity-based learning encourages practical applications of concepts together. This approach enhances critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and long-term retention of knowledge. So those are my reports about the 5 e-learning cycle and activity-based learning. So if you want to find those topics, you can research this. Those references that I will give to my slides. So that's all. Thank you for listening.